r/AskReddit. What is a survival myth that is completely wrong and could get you killed? The YouTube videos on how to unarm an attacker from close range. You'll die before you can nearly whore. Yeah, if you have not trained extensively in real self-defense, you should never try to fight an armed opponent. Just give them what they want or run. Those videos usually have the person letting the moves be put on them very easily, when in reality a lot of those moves need to be executed at extremely fast speed with practiced precision. Otherwise you will just end up in a wrestling match against someone with a knife, which usually won't end well. I used to run cash parking lots for events. Attendants regularly would have to handle thousands of dollars in cash, sometimes alone or nearly so. I instituted what we called the $200 rule. No attendant should have more than $200 in their hand at any time, ever. Cash over $200 went into a pocket until I could pick it up. The plan was, if they were ever mugged, had a knife or gun put in their face etc., they were to instantly take that $200 and throw it at the mugger and run like hell towards the nearest well-lit populated area. The mugger would of course be too busy picking up the $200 to injure the attendant and or get the big stash of money in the attendant's pocket. It happened twice. Both times the attendant got away no problem and we sacrificed $200 or less for his/her safety. Money well spent. The first mistake is to look for food and water first, before having a shelter up, to keep yourself dry and warm. Edit, when I say shelter first it includes having a fire too, which I forgot to mention. When you are wet and exposed to the element, your core body temperature can drop and you can get hypothermia if it gets too cold, and you would burn more calories than necessary. A big reason to building a shelter too is to also keep yourself off the ground, because the ground is an infinite heat sink, which means you lose your body heat way faster than you would think and will be more exposed to the cold/element. Guys, yes, it's good to be near a water source, but remember that it's always colder around rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans. Make sure you are able to easily gather shelter/fire material within the area, plus finding a prime location to set up shelter. I feel like a book right now. Thanks for the silver. Shelter, water, food. In that order. If you ever find yourself in snake country, make as much noise as possible. Most people want to avoid snakes, so stay quiet, but they are more scared of you than you are of them. Talk loudly, stomp, but obviously keep an eye and ear out for any fellas who don't want you to be there. Source, Australian. Except for the death adder, which will lie there and ignore 19 people stepping over it, then bite the 20th one who has the bad luck to step on it. Easy solution, just get bit by a death subtractor. Yeah, Louisiana swamp person here. Make some noise and most hazards will avoid you without you even knowing they were there. Hiking in Canada as a kid, I was afraid that bears would get me. My dad laughed and said as noisy as I was, I would probably never see a bear in my life. If you have to forage for food, avoid mushrooms entirely. Odds are so slim you will find an edible kind that you're much better off looking for things like nuts, seeds, and berries. Edit, this is not the myth, this is the truth. They also hold negligible amounts of calories, so even if you are knowledgeable about fungi it still isn't worth it. Guess the only scenario where you might go for it is if you have knowledge on edible mushrooms and stumble upon a grove full of them. Wear a seatbelt. There's myths about it being bad if you go into a lake or there's a fire, but one, that is an incredibly tiny proportion of car crashes, and two, if you're in that situation, you're far more likely to be knocked out and die of inaction if you're not wearing a seatbelt. I know this is a mundane tip, but you're far more likely to be in a life-threatening car crash than be stabbed or be in a falling elevator. Wear a seatbelt. Wear your ducking seatbelt. Apparently passengers can smash into other passengers when they are not wearing seatbelts. If you ever fall off a ship/ferry at sea and were lucky enough to be spotted, don't try to swim your way to safety. The more you try to swim, the lesser the chances of survival. Just try to keep afloat and conserve energy and body heat while rescue team do what they're supposed to. Unless you are in hypothermic waters, the best bet always is to stay afloat without trying to swim to somewhere. This information about falling overboard, hypothermia and conditions, survival at sea etc. are based on my own experience of 12 years sailing on merchant ship. Herbivorous animals are friendly and peaceful, so you are safe being around them, and their presence will show you where food is. Seriously, everything from cows to deer can and will kill you if you make it angry. It is usually a good idea, if you are in the wilds, not to get near any large wild animal, but herbivores can often be even more aggressive than the predators. If a predator attacks you, you have a fairly good chance of scaring it off, especially if it's smaller than you, because it's likely only looking for food. If a herbivore attacks you, you're ducked because it genuinely wants to kill you. If it's a predator, you just need to convince it that you aren't worth the effort, especially if it's not too hungry. If it's a herbivore, that's just going to make it want to kill you more. If you get stabbed with anything, don't pull it out, since it could be the thing that's preventing you from bleeding out. Instead, immobilize it and go to the hospital, where they can stop the bleeding when they remove the object. Also, if the object is impaling one eye, do your best to immobilize it with some wrapping gauze or even a torn t-shirt. Be sure to wrap over the uninjured eye, making it so the patient cannot see. This is to prevent the injured eye from moving when the uninjured eye moves. You do not need to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. If you think someone is missing, report it as such. The faster a missing person report is filed, the greater the chance the person will be found, especially if it's a child. Missing children are at high risk during the first 24 hours, especially if abducted. In 76% of child abduction murders, the victim was dead within 3 hours. 88.5% were dead in the first 24 hours. It's actually a felony in some states to fail to report a child missing after a certain amount of time. Don't eat snow to stay hydrated if you're in a winter survival situation. Losing the heat to the snow while eating it is more dangerous than dehydration. Heat it up or let it melt in a container first to lose less heat. You can hydrate from soda. If that's all you have, drink it. Follow flying birds to find water. They can simply be flying to spend a night anywhere, so we can't rely on them. Fish are the ones you should follow to find water. That's why I always carry a goldfish on desert expeditions. Punch a shark in the nose. As a diver, there was a joke that we are supposed to use our dive knives for shark attacks. We'd cut our dive buddy and swim away, hoping the shark would get them first. Cotton wicks moisture. Cotton is probably the worst material to wear in an outdoor survival situation because it holds moisture and in doing so loses its ability to keep you warm. Yes, this is what wool is for, not cotton. That you can eat what animals eat. Not true. Animals have different digestion systems that aren't the same as a human's. I've heard if it's a bird you shouldn't eat what they eat, but you can eat what bears eat. Still not too helpful unless there's an abundance of bears around you. Still not too helpful unless there's an abundance of bears around you, in which case you have bigger problems. Sucking a snake bite, it will often make it worse. Removing a bullet is more dangerous than leaving it in. Trying to remove it can tear vital organs. It can be pushed in even deeper, or removing it can cause the person to bleed out. One I know of is the myth that you can drink water from a cactus. I heard it's false, and you can only drink from a small minority of cacti without having certain health consequences I'm not aware of. Another one. Poison ivy isn't just washed off with water and soap. It almost leaves a sap-like residue on your skin. Wash the area and wipe off the residue, never reusing the same part of the cloth. Imagine wiping grease off of your skin. It's much like the same thing. You can avoid some nasty rashes and immune responses if you do it correctly. Can make a huge difference outdoors. Don't put severed parts on ice. It'll practically give the dead tissue frostbite, thus making it near impossible to reattach. If you try jumping in an malfunctioning falling elevator at the very second it smashes into the ground, you still not living. Pretty sure elevators are required by law to have a counterweight nowadays to prevent this from ever taking place in the first place. Could be wrong, though. Apparently some people think the best way to survive a wolf attack is to bend down and show the wolf you're submissive towards him and pose as no threat. If you do this, you're dead. The wolf will 100% end you. Your best bet is to walk away without turning your backs on them, maintaining eye contact the whole way. If you look away or turn your back, the wolf's killer instinct will kick in, and it'll kill you. Don't make a lot of noise and aggressive movements towards a wolf the same way you'd do to a black bear, because most likely it'll be seen as a challenge, not a threat. Please like and subscribe to keep this little lamb smiling. Be a nice person and thank you for watching.